There are moments in life that feel too strange to be coincidences. A door suddenly closes right before you walk through it. A person disappears from your life without warning. A feeling deep inside keeps telling you something is wrong, even when everything on the outside looks perfectly normal. And most people ignore those moments. They call them bad luck, timing, stress, overthinking. But what if those moments are actually signals? What if God has been trying to get your attention, and you just have not recognized His voice yet? The frightening truth is this. God rarely screams. Most of the time, He whispers. And in a world filled with noise, distractions, pressure, and endless thoughts inside our minds, very few people are quiet enough to hear Him. Maybe recently you have been feeling different. More tired than usual. More emotionally drained. Maybe things that once excited you suddenly feel empty. Maybe you keep seeing the same signs over and over again. The same message. The same type of pain. The same lesson repeating in different forms. And deep inside, there is a part of you wondering if life is trying to tell you something. But here is what most people never realize: before God changes your life, He often sends warnings first. Not to scare you, but to wake you up. There are people who spend years praying for a better life while completely ignoring the signs that are leading them away from the wrong one. They keep holding on to relationships that destroy their peace. They keep chasing things that slowly kill their spirit. They keep forcing doors open that God already closed for a reason. And then one day, everything collapses. Not because God abandoned them, but because they ignored every signal He lovingly placed in front of them. Sometimes the signal comes as exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, soul exhaustion. The kind of tiredness sleep cannot fix. You wake up every morning already drained. You smile around people, but inside you feel disconnected from yourself. And you do not understand why. The truth is, your soul knows when you are living against what God created you for. Your spirit knows when you are staying somewhere you no longer belong. That is why some people feel restless no matter how much money they make, no matter how many people surround them, no matter how successful they appear from the outside. Because external success cannot heal internal emptiness. And sometimes that emptiness is a warning sign from God. A gentle whisper saying, "This is not the life I meant for you." But people ignore it because they are afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of losing people. Afraid of starting over. So they stay in places that slowly break them apart. There are moments when God tries to protect you by removing something from your life. But instead of trusting Him, you beg for it back. You chase after the very thing that was destroying your peace. And that is why many people suffer longer than they need to. Because they mistake attachment for love. They mistake comfort for purpose. They mistake familiarity for destiny. Maybe lately you have noticed that certain things keep falling apart no matter how hard you try to hold them together. Relationships become distant. Plans suddenly fail. Opportunities disappear at the last second. And you keep asking, why is this happening to me? But maybe the better question is, what is God trying to show me through this? Because sometimes rejection is protection. Sometimes delays are direction. Sometimes the closed door is actually the greatest mercy God could give you. But you will not understand that while you are still standing in the middle of the pain. Human beings often think God's presence will feel dramatic and obvious. But many times, His signals are quiet. A strange feeling in your heart that will not go away. A constant discomfort every time you enter a certain environment. A repeated pattern of pain that keeps showing up in your life. A sudden loss of peace whenever you move towards something that looks good on the outside. Those things matter. And deep down, you already know it. There is a reason why some people come into your life and immediately drain your spirit. There is a reason why certain places leave you feeling empty no matter how hard you try to belong there. There is a reason why your soul feels heavy every time you keep betraying your own inner truth just to make other people comfortable. God speaks through peace. And when peace disappears, you should pay attention. The problem is, most people wait until life completely breaks them before they finally listen. They ignore the whispers until the storm becomes loud enough to stop them. There are people right now who knew deep inside that they were walking down the wrong path, but they kept going anyway. And eventually life collapsed around them. Not because God hated them, but because He was trying to rescue them from becoming someone they were never meant to be. Sometimes God allows discomfort because comfort is the very thing keeping you trapped. There are seasons where your life starts feeling uncertain because your soul is being pulled toward transformation. But transformation is painful. Growth is painful. Letting go is painful. And many people would rather stay in familiar misery than walk into an unknown future with God. But if you keep ignoring the signals, life eventually forces you to stop and listen. Maybe that is why you are here right now. Maybe this video is not random. Maybe these words found you during a moment when your soul needed them most. Because deep inside, you already feel that something has to change. You already know there is a part of your life that no longer aligns with the peace God wants for you. And maybe tonight, this is your warning before the storm gets louder. Maybe God is asking you to slow down. To pay attention. To stop abandoning your spirit just to hold on to things that are breaking you. Because not every loss is punishment. Some losses are rescue. Not every ending is destruction. Some endings are God removing you from places your future cannot survive in. And one day, you will look back at this season of confusion and realize that God was guiding you the entire time. Even through the pain. Even through the silence. Even through the things you did not understand. So tonight, before you fall asleep, ask yourself honestly. What keeps repeating in my life that I continue to ignore? What keeps stealing my peace? What truth have I been running from? Because sometimes the biggest miracle is not God changing your circumstances overnight. Sometimes the miracle is finally opening your eyes before it is too late. And if these words touched your heart tonight, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, so we can continue walking through faith, healing, and hope together in the videos ahead. There comes a moment in life when everything starts falling apart at the same time. Not all at once like in the movies, but slowly. Quietly. Painfully. A relationship becomes distant. Your motivation disappears. The things that once made you feel alive suddenly feel empty. And every morning you wake up with this heavy feeling in your chest that you cannot fully explain. At first, you tell yourself it is just stress. Just a difficult season. Just exhaustion. But deep inside, you know it is something more. Because when a life collapse begins, it does not only affect your circumstances. It affects your soul. You stop recognizing yourself. You look in the mirror and see someone tired. Someone emotionally drained. Someone who has been fighting silent battles for far too long. And the hardest part is, nobody else really sees it. You still go to work. You still answer messages. You still smile when people talk to you. But inside, there is a storm happening that no one understands. There are nights where you lie awake staring into the darkness, wondering what happened to the person you used to be. Wondering where your peace went. Wondering how life became so heavy without you even noticing it happen. And maybe that is the cruelest thing about emotional collapse, it happens gradually. A little more disappointment every day. A little more loneliness. A little more pretending. Until one day, your soul becomes too tired to carry the weight anymore. There are people who have spent so many years surviving that they no longer know how to live. They wake up already exhausted. They move through the world disconnected from themselves. They laugh around others while secretly feeling empty inside. And over time, they begin to believe that this numbness is normal. But it is not normal. Human beings were not created to live without peace. The problem is, many people stay in environments that slowly destroy their spirit because pain feels more familiar than change. There are people staying in relationships where they constantly feel unseen. Staying in jobs that suffocate their soul. Staying loyal to versions of themselves that God has been trying to free them from for years. And eventually, the pressure becomes unbearable. Sometimes life collapses because your soul can no longer survive in the place you keep forcing it to stay. But while you are inside the collapse, it feels like punishment. It feels like abandonment. It feels like God disappeared exactly when you needed him most. Maybe lately you have been asking yourself questions you never used to ask. Why do I feel so lost? Why does everything keep going wrong? Why does it feel like my life is falling apart no matter how hard I try? And maybe you have started blaming yourself for all of it. But sometimes, collapse is not destruction. Sometimes collapse is exposure. God begins tearing away the illusions you have been hiding behind. The relationships that looked healthy but were draining your spirit. The goals that impressed people but left your soul empty. The version of yourself that smiled outwardly while silently dying inside. And when those things start breaking apart, it hurts because they became part of your identity. There are nights during a life collapse where the silence becomes unbearable. You replay old memories over and over again. Conversations. Mistakes. Regrets. You think about all the moments you ignored your own intuition just to keep people happy. All the times you abandoned yourself to avoid being abandoned by others. And suddenly, the pain becomes bigger than one event. It becomes years of exhaustion finally catching up with you. There are people listening to these words tonight who are emotionally exhausted beyond explanation. Not because they are weak, but because they have been carrying too much for too long. Carrying everyone else's expectations. Everyone else's emotions. Everyone else's problems. And somewhere along the way, they forgot how to care for their own soul. The heartbreaking thing about collapse is that it often happens in isolation. The world keeps moving while you feel like you are drowning inside. People still expect you to function normally. To show up. To keep going. But they do not see how hard it has become just to survive one more day emotionally. And sometimes, the deepest suffering comes from feeling like nobody notices how badly you are hurting. There are moments during emotional collapse when you stop recognizing joy. Things that once mattered no longer move you. You stop dreaming. Stop hoping. Stop believing anything will ever change. And that is when darkness becomes dangerous, when a person begins losing connection not only to happiness, but to meaning itself. But listen carefully tonight. If your life feels like it is collapsing, it does not automatically mean God has abandoned you. Sometimes God allows collapse because the life you were living could no longer carry the future He planned for you. There are seasons where everything unstable must break apart so something real can finally be built. But human beings hate uncertainty. We would rather hold on to familiar pain than walk into an unknown future. That is why many people keep trying to rebuild the very things God is trying to remove. They keep reopening doors God closed. Keep returning to places that destroy their peace. Keep choosing comfort over healing. And eventually, the soul begins to break under the weight of resisting transformation. There is a strange loneliness that happens during collapse. You feel disconnected from the world around you. People talk to you, but you feel far away emotionally. You sit in crowded rooms while feeling completely alone inside. And you wonder if anyone would truly understand the battle happening in your mind every single day. But maybe the reason you feel disconnected is because your soul is changing. Sometimes before God transforms your life externally, He transforms you internally first. An internal transformation often feels like loss before it feels like growth. Old habits begin dying. Old desires begin fading. Old identities stop fitting anymore. And during that process, you feel suspended between two versions of yourself. The person you used to be, and the person you are becoming. That space is painful, confusing, lonely. But it is also sacred. Because many of the strongest, deepest, most compassionate people you will ever meet were created through seasons of collapse. They learned how to love through heartbreak. Learned how to trust God through uncertainty. Learned how to survive nights they once believed would destroy them. And maybe that is what is happening to you right now. Maybe this season is not the end of your story. Maybe it is the breaking apart of everything false so something honest can finally emerge. Because there are versions of you that cannot exist until the old life collapses first. And one day, you will look back at this season differently. You will realize that some doors needed to close. Some people needed to leave. Some illusions needed to shatter. Because if everything had stayed comfortable, you never would have become who you were meant to be. So tonight, if your life feels heavy, if your soul feels exhausted, if everything around you seems uncertain, do not mistake collapse for the end. Sometimes God allows things to fall apart because He sees something greater trying to come together underneath the ruins. And if these words found you tonight, maybe your story is not over yet. Maybe this is only the chapter where God begins rebuilding you from the inside out. And if this message touched your heart, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, so we can continue walking through healing, faith, and hope together in the videos ahead. There is a kind of pain that does not make noise. No one sees it. No one notices it. But every single day, it quietly destroys a person from the inside out. And the frightening part about deep suffering is that life still expects you to keep going while your soul is breaking apart. You still wake up in the morning. You still answer people when they speak to you. You still force yourself to smile in conversations. But inside, you feel exhausted in ways words cannot explain. There are nights when you sit alone in silence and realize you have been carrying sadness for so long that you no longer remember what peace feels like. You try to distract yourself. You scroll through your phone. You watch videos. You talk to people. But eventually the silence always returns. And when it does, all the thoughts you were running from come back louder than before. The regrets. The loneliness. The fear. The memories that still hurt even after all this time. And maybe the hardest part is that nobody around you truly understands how much energy it takes just to survive emotionally every day. Deep suffering changes a person slowly. It steals joy first. Then motivation. Then hope. There are people who once laughed easily, who once dreamed about the future, who once believed beautiful things were still possible for them. But after enough disappointment, enough heartbreak, enough silent battles, they stopped expecting life to feel good anymore. They learned how to survive instead of how to live. Maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe you have become so used to carrying emotional pain that you barely notice how heavy it has become. You wake up tired. You go to sleep tired. And somewhere in between, you pretend to be okay because you do not want to burden anyone else with what is happening inside your mind. There are people listening tonight who have cried so much in private that they no longer know how to explain their pain out loud. They keep everything hidden behind quiet smiles and short answers. When someone asks, "Are you okay?" they automatically say yes, because explaining the truth feels impossible. How do you explain a sadness that has no clear shape? How do you explain the feeling of being emotionally exhausted by life itself? Some wounds are invisible. But invisible wounds still bleed. There are nights where the darkness inside your mind feels louder than the entire world around you. Nights where you replay old memories over and over again. Moments you wish never happened. Words people said that still echo inside your chest years later. And sometimes, the pain is not even about one single event anymore. It becomes years of emotional neglect. Years of feeling unseen. Years of giving love without receiving it back. Years of trying to be strong for everyone else while secretly falling apart inside. The truth is, some people are carrying pain so Deep that they no longer know who they are without it. They have been anxious for so long that peace feels unfamiliar. They have been sad for so long that happiness almost feels suspicious. And after enough heartbreak, many people stop believing they deserve joy at all. They begin seeing themselves through the lens of their suffering. Broken. Unworthy. Unlovable. But pain lies to people. Deep suffering convinces you that your life will always feel this heavy. It convinces you that nobody understands. That nothing will change. That you will never feel whole again. But those thoughts are not the voice of God. Because God does not speak hopelessness over your life. There are people tonight who feel emotionally abandoned. Not because they are physically alone, but because nobody truly sees the war happening inside them. They are surrounded by people yet still feel disconnected from everyone. And maybe the most painful loneliness is not being alone physically, but feeling emotionally invisible. Feeling like nobody would understand even if you tried to explain it. So instead, you stay silent. You carry it alone. You become your own emotional hiding place. But silence can become dangerous when pain lives there too long. Some people have spent years fighting battles in their mind that nobody knows about. They overthink everything. They blame themselves for things they could not control. They carry guilt from the past like chains around their soul. And eventually, they become emotionally exhausted from simply existing. There are moments during deep suffering when even small tasks feel overwhelming. Getting out of bed feels heavy. Responding to messages feels exhausting. Smiling feels fake. And while the world keeps moving forward, you feel emotionally frozen in place. That kind of suffering is difficult because it makes people feel weak. But listen carefully tonight, you are not weak because you are struggling. In fact, surviving emotional pain for this long already proves how strong you truly are. Some people have survived things emotionally that would have destroyed others completely. They survived rejection, betrayal, grief, trauma, loneliness. And somehow, they are still here. Still breathing. Still searching for hope even if only a small part of them still believes in it. That matters more than you realize. God sees every silent battle you fight. Every sleepless night. Every hidden tear. Every moment you wanted to give up but somehow kept going anyway. Even when nobody else understands your pain. God does. And maybe that is why some of the kindest people in the world are also the ones who suffered the most. Because pain deepens a soul. It teaches compassion. It teaches empathy. It teaches people how desperately human beings need love and gentleness. There are people who became soft because life was soft with them. But there are others who became soft after life broke them completely, and they chose kindness anyway. That kind of strength is sacred. Sometimes deep suffering is not punishment. Sometimes it is transformation happening underneath the surface. Sometimes God allows a season of emotional breaking because there are parts of you that cannot heal while everything stays comfortable. Human beings often discover their deepest truths during their darkest nights. They learn who they really are after the masks fall off. After the distractions disappear. After the false identities collapse. And while those seasons feel unbearable, they often become the beginning of spiritual awakening. But awakening is painful. Growth is painful. Healing is painful. Because healing requires honesty. It requires finally admitting how tired you really are. How hurt you really are. How much of yourself you lost trying to survive. There are people listening tonight who spent so much time trying to save everyone else that they completely abandoned themselves. They gave love until they became emotionally empty. They carried responsibilities until their spirit collapsed. And now, they do not even know how to ask for help anymore. But maybe tonight, God is reminding you that you do not have to carry everything alone forever. Maybe He is asking you to stop pretending you are okay when your soul desperately needs rest. Because God never asked human beings to become machines without emotion. He created hearts that need love. Souls that need peace. Spirits that need healing. And maybe that healing begins tonight, not with a dramatic miracle, but with one simple truth finally reaching your heart. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to admit you are hurting. And you are still worthy of love even in the middle of your brokenness. One day, this pain will not control you the way it does now. One day you will breathe without carrying this same heaviness in your chest. One day you will look back and realize that even during your darkest nights, God was still quietly holding your life together. And maybe the greatest miracle is not that you never fell apart. Maybe the miracle is that after everything you survived, there is still softness inside your heart. There is still hope. There is still a small light inside you refusing to die. And if these words touched your soul tonight, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, so we can continue walking through healing, faith, and hope together in the videos ahead. Heavenly Father, tonight we come before you with hearts that are tired. Some of us are carrying pain we have never spoken out loud. Some of us have been trying to stay strong for so long that we no longer remember what rest feels like. And maybe tonight, behind the quietness of this moment, there are people listening with tears in their eyes, asking silently, God, are you still here with me? So Father, before anything else, let them feel your presence tonight. Not tomorrow. Not someday in the future. But right now, in this very moment. Let peace enter the rooms where anxiety has lived for too long. Let calm enter the hearts that have been carrying fear every single day. Lord, there are people listening tonight who feel emotionally exhausted. They smile in front of others while secretly falling apart inside. They keep saying, I'm okay, because they do not know how to explain the heaviness they feel. But you know, God. You see every hidden tear. Every sleepless night. Every silent battle happening inside their mind. You see the moments they almost gave up, but somehow kept going anyway. And tonight, I ask you to hold those hurting hearts close to you. Wrap them in a peace that this world cannot give. There are people tonight who feel abandoned, rejected, forgotten. Some have been hurt by the people they trusted the most. Some have spent years giving love only to feel unseen in return. And slowly, they started believing the lie that maybe they are not worthy of love at all. But Father, please remind them tonight that their value does not come from who stayed or who left. Their worth does not come from human approval. Their worth comes from you. From the God who created them with purpose before they ever experienced pain. Lord, heal the hearts that feel broken beyond repair. Heal the people who secretly feel emotionally numb because life has hurt them too many times. Some are tired of hoping because disappointment has become familiar. Some are tired of praying because they feel like nothing changes. But Father, even in the silence, please remind them that you are still working. Even when they cannot see the way forward. You are still guiding them. There are people tonight who are afraid of the future. Afraid of losing more. Afraid that life will never feel light again. And maybe they have been carrying those fears alone for a very long time. So tonight, I ask you to quiet the noise inside their minds. Silence the overthinking. Silence the fear. Silence the voices telling them they are not enough. Replace those voices with your truth. Remind them that they are loved. Remind them that they are not forgotten. Remind them that no season of suffering lasts forever. Father, some people listening tonight are exhausted from trying to hold everything together. They carry responsibilities nobody notices. They carry emotional wounds nobody understands. And every day feels like another battle just to survive mentally and emotionally. Please give them strength tonight. Not the kind of strength that forces them to pretend anymore, but the kind of strength that allows them to rest in you. Let them know they do not have to carry every burden alone. Lord, there are souls tonight who feel completely lost. They no longer recognize themselves. They no longer know what brings them joy. They wake up tired. They go to sleep anxious. And deep inside, they wonder if they will ever feel whole again. Father, please reach into the darkest places of their heart tonight. Into the places they hide from everyone else. The places filled with grief, shame, regret, loneliness. And breathe life back into them. Remind them that healing is still possible. Remind them that just because they feel broken now does not mean their story is over. Lord, there are people tonight carrying guilt from the past. They replay old mistakes in their mind over and over again. They blame themselves for things they cannot change anymore. And the weight of that guilt has become unbearable. Father, teach them how to forgive themselves. Teach them that your mercy is bigger than their past. Bigger than their failures. Bigger than the things they are ashamed of. Let tonight be the beginning of freedom from the chains they have carried for far too long. Father, for the person listening tonight who feels completely alone, please stay close to them. When the room feels empty, remind them you are there. When the darkness feels overwhelming, remind them your light still exists. And when their mind tells them to give up, please whisper hope into their spirit one more time. Because some people are holding on by the smallest thread tonight. And they desperately need to know that their life still matters. Lord, some hearts listening right now have become so used to pain that peace feels unfamiliar. They do not know how to rest anymore. They do not know how to stop worrying. So tonight, I pray for deep peace over their soul. The kind of peace that reaches beyond emotions. Beyond circumstances. Beyond fear. A peace that allows them to breathe deeply again after carrying heaviness for so long. Father, heal the people who feel invisible. The ones who always listen to everyone else but secretly wish someone would ask how they are really doing. The ones who carry the emotional weight of others while silently neglecting their own soul. Please remind them tonight that they deserve care too. They deserve gentleness too. They deserve healing too. Lord, thank you for never abandoning us even in our darkest seasons. Even when we lose faith. Even when we feel numb. Even when we feel too broken to pray anymore. You still stay near. Quietly loving us through every painful chapter of our lives. And tonight, before we sleep, we place every fear, every wound, every burden into your hands. The things we cannot fix. The pain we cannot explain. The future we cannot control. We surrender it all to you. And we ask for one thing tonight, Father, peace. Deep peace inside our soul. Let tonight be a night of rest for tired hearts. Let tonight be a night where anxious minds finally become quiet. Let tonight be a night where broken people remember they are still deeply loved by you. And tomorrow, when the sun rises again, give us enough strength to keep moving forward one more day. One step at a time. One prayer at a time. One breath at a time. Amen. And if this prayer stayed with you tonight, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, so we can continue walking together through faith, healing, and hope in the videos ahead. And after all the pain, after all the nights you cried in silence wondering if life would ever feel normal again, there comes a moment when something inside you begins to change. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But quietly, deeply, like the first light appearing after a very long night. At first, you barely notice it. You still carry scars. You still have difficult days. But somehow, the pain no longer controls you the way it used to. You begin breathing a little easier. Sleeping a little calmer. Smiling a little more honestly. And one day you realize. God was never trying to destroy you. He was transforming you. There are seasons in life where God allows everything unstable to fall apart because the person you are becoming cannot survive inside the life you used to live. And that truth is painful. Because human beings become attached to familiar things, even when those things slowly destroy their peace. We stay in relationships that drain our spirit because we fear loneliness. We chase approval because we fear rejection. We cling to old identities because we fear change. But eventually, God begins removing the things that no longer align with the future He created for us. And during that process, life can feel unbearable. There are moments where transformation feels exactly like loss. You lose people. Lose comfort. Lose certainty. Lose the version of yourself you spent years trying to protect. And while it is happening, you think your world is ending. But later, you understand something beautiful. Sometimes God breaks your heart to save your soul. Sometimes He closes doors because He sees dangers your emotions cannot see yet. And sometimes the collapse was never punishment, it was rescue. Maybe a few months ago, or a few years ago, you were desperately trying to hold together things that God was quietly asking you to release. Maybe you begged people to stay who were never meant to walk into your future. Maybe you cried over doors that closed because you thought losing them meant losing your purpose. But tonight, look at yourself. You survived things you once believed would completely destroy you. And even though you still carry pain, you are no longer the same person you used to be. Suffering changed you. The loneliness changed you. The nights of silence changed you. Before the pain, maybe you only valued yourself when other people approved of you. Maybe you thought your worth depended on being needed, chosen, loved, admired. But heartbreak taught you something deeper. It taught you that your value does not disappear just because someone failed to recognize it. Gold remains gold, even when buried in darkness. And your soul remains valuable, even in broken seasons. There are people listening tonight who spent years trying to become everything for everyone else. They exhausted themselves emotionally trying to earn love they should never have had to earn. And somewhere along the way, they forgot who they really were. But pain has a strange way of revealing truth. Sometimes suffering removes every mask until all that remains is your real soul standing before God. And that moment is terrifying, but sacred. Because that is where healing begins. Not when life becomes perfect, but when you stop running from yourself. There are some wounds that changed you forever. Some betrayals that made you question your ability to trust again. Some losses that made you wonder if God had forgotten you completely. But what if even those painful chapters carried purpose? What if the nights that broke you emotionally were also the nights that brought you closer to God than ever before? Human beings often grow the most during the seasons they would never choose for themselves. Deep pain forces people to ask deeper questions. It strips away illusions. It exposes false foundations. It teaches you what truly matters. And eventually, it changes the way you see everything. You begin craving peace more than attention. Truth more than appearances. Genuine connection more than temporary validation. That is transformation. Real transformation is not loud. It happens quietly inside the soul. A person who once constantly chased approval suddenly learns how to rest in God's love instead. A person who once feared being alone discovers that solitude can become healing. A person who once lived emotionally exhausted begins protecting their peace like something sacred. And maybe that is exactly what God has been doing inside you all along. Maybe He was teaching you how to stop abandoning yourself for people who could not love you correctly. Maybe He was teaching you how to stop settling for environments that slowly poisoned your spirit. Maybe He was teaching you that peace is not found in controlling everything, but in trusting Him even when you cannot see the entire path ahead. There are people tonight who still feel lost in the middle of their transformation. They are no longer the person they used to be, but they have not fully become the person God is shaping them into either. And that in-between space feels lonely. Confusing. Uncertain. But listen carefully. Just because transformation feels uncomfortable does not mean God is absent from it. In fact, He is often closest during the seasons where everything feels uncertain. A seed buried underground probably feels forgotten before it becomes a tree. But hidden growth is still growth. And your soul may be growing in ways you cannot fully see yet. One day, you will look back at this season differently. You will realize that the heartbreak forced you to become stronger. The loneliness forced you to become deeper. The silence forced you to finally hear God's voice more clearly than the noise of the world. And maybe for the first time in your life, you will stop measuring your worth by who stayed or who left. Because God never called you to spend your life begging for love from people who could not even recognize your value. There is a version of you waiting on the other side of this pain. A calmer version. A wiser version. A version that no longer breaks themselves trying to save everyone else. A version that finally understands they do not need to be perfect to deserve love. And perhaps the most beautiful part of transformation is this: the very things that once almost destroyed you become the testimony that helps heal someone else later. Because people who survive darkness carry a different kind of light inside them. They understand pain differently. They love differently. They speak with gentleness because they know what suffering feels like. And maybe one day, your story will become proof that God can rebuild even the most exhausted soul. So tonight, before you fall asleep, remember this. Your life is not over just because a painful chapter exists. God is still writing your story. Even now. Even in the silence. Even in the uncertainty. And if He carried you through every dark night you thought would destroy you, He will carry you through this season too. One day you will understand why certain doors closed. Why certain people left. Why certain dreams fell apart. And when that day comes, you may finally realize that God was never punishing you. He was preparing you. Transforming you. Leading you toward the life your soul truly needed all along. And if these words touched your heart tonight, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, so we can continue walking together through faith, healing, and hope in the videos ahead.